Test, test. What's going on there, Mud? How you doing? Looks like you're number one, Mud. Well, at least in terms of who said something in the chat. Very nice. I like that. Is he going to show up in class? I would happily tell him. Did you go, Mud, did you go to the thing in Florence? Jefferson, Maryland. Penny Jean, how are you? I'm feeling okay. Hanging in there. Oh, I feel your pain, Mud. I promise I feel your pain in more ways than one. Yes, it does. If you don't mind asking, how old are you? No, not too much. Well, depends on it depends. I'm always in a little bit of pain, it seems these days, sadly. Part of getting old, just like what Mud talked about. We're similar. I'm 52. So we're you now qualify for the senior meal discount, and I'm coming. I'm right behind you on your heels. You know, when you're 20, 50 just seemed so far away. Boy, it came here very fast. Hmm. Oh, yeah, we are close. I forgot some. I'll be right back, guys. Hello, Tiffany. I guess we're all pretty close in age. How do you garden in the desert? What do you garden? I've kind of forgot what grows over there this time of year. Very nice, Tiffany. Very nice. Do you have him watch the show, either live or afterwards? And War Hamster is about to join us. The hamster. The hamster with his what kind of a picture is that? Here, here and gone. Bet quick. Aye, very nice. A patriotic 60. Very nice. So we've got 14 watching. Dave, are you there too? Exactly, Mud. My good friend Dave is says he's in the audience, but I don't know if he knows how to use the chat. Dave is one of my closest friends. He's not very tech savvy, and he's not going to be offended if I say that. He's very thick skinned. He will laugh. He will laugh and say, "This is true." There's the war hamster. War hamster is the war hamster joining us with this little peace sign. There's the war hamster. We're live, war hamster. If you want your face shown. Your face is able to be seen. So I like the loving hamster today.
That's exactly what it is. It's the love hamster.
The love hamster, not the war hamster.
Yeah. Every once in a while, we got to be in a good mood.
Very nice. Well, you always seem to be in a good mood. Hey, Tracy, how are you? Yes, I was on Jayco, and I was on with Nino, and I'm going to be on Nino next week. Actually, I think I'm going to be. Let's see here. When am I going on Nino again? Yeah, next Tuesday at 11. So a week from today, I'm going to be on Nino again. Yes, exactly. Tracy, I was a little surprised to see you in the chat and Nino's thing. I was like, Tracy? I was like, hey, there's a friendly face here. It was kind of fun. I think I surprised a lot of people by the fact that I was the one being interviewed and I was in the chat with everybody.
There's a lot of comments I missed. People got on early today.
Yeah. It was, I think I've been on for about 11 minutes.
Talking to yourself, huh?
No, so what I do is I get in there and I set the thing up, and then that way I can share the link inside of the Patriot Street Fighter Telegram chat.
Gotcha.
Tracy, I've been, well, I knew of Nino from right at the time when he did that, his I guess the video that he did where he's wearing his Cowboys hat and it went viral. I remember him from the very beginning. And then of course as a result of that, he started to do just a lot of different things. And as a result, he got big. He got really big. And I mean, he's enormous now. But I had the luxury and the privilege of calling him a friend.
Hey, Ron, we got to figure out a way to get my hamster icons to show up on YouTube. It is frustrating. I mean, it makes no sense to me at all.
Well, okay. So I think what I'm going to start doing, you know how we do the StreamYard with the glitch in the matrix?
Yeah.
I want to get Doug transitioned over to StreamYard.
It should take 10 seconds. Well,
exactly.
It's Doug, so 30 seconds.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it looks stupid on the YouTube channel. I'm just black screen. And I got all these cool little hamster icons that everybody gets to miss out on.
I wish I knew how to.
I just don't understand why YouTube doesn't pick up on the feed directly like it does on your feed.
I don't know. I wish I knew the answer to that question. I really do.
Yeah, well, let's solve it before next Tuesday. I'm tired of being Mr. Black Screen.
Okay.
My anonymity should at least be entertaining.
I agree.
And I got a cool hamster icon this week.
Yes, you do. You have the love hamster. It's almost like it's Valentine's Day. How you doing there, Michelle? Proud PA Patriot.
Yeah, I just happen to be in a particularly good mood today.
Montalbano. How are you, Chris?
Chris is one of our buddies who has been zooming in on our Thursday night class for ages.
Chris out there in Mississippi.
Chris in Mississippi.
I've actually become good friends with Chris.
Yeah, I actually had dinner with Chris and his lovely wife when I was on my tour.
Oh, very nice.
And got to see their house and took some pictures. And
wow, well, you were definitely in the cool kids crowd because I didn't have that. I didn't get the chance to. Chris, how far outside of Hattiesburg are you? Well, you might even be able to answer that question faster than he can. Well, no, you can't, Doug. You don't shit. You don't know where freaking you struggle where Temecula is.
Mississippi, somewhere near
exactly.
And
hello, Rita.
It's 3:01. Let's get
3:01. Let's do it.
I know my geography gooder than you. Okay.
Gooder than you. By the way, Douglas, just FYI, we are going to transition. This is the last week we are going to do Zoom. Next week, we are going to do something called StreamYard. So
I'm familiar with it. I have an account with StreamYard. I use it for my YouTube videos.
Very well. Good. So the background that you use, we just need to get that transitioned over to StreamYard. So next week we're going to do StreamYard.
I think it already is because I do StreamYard videos every once in a while, and I believe it's already there.
Okay, perfect.
So yeah, I've had StreamYard. When I do my live YouTube videos, I use StreamYard.
Perfect. Good. Well, I'm good to know that.
Doug, I don't know if you saw, but Renee from our Carlsbad class is joining us in the Zoom today or on YouTube.
Yeah, no, I can't see the chat or anything because.
Well, we can still say hi to Renee without seeing it.
Hi, Renee. Something on my hand. I have a meeting tomorrow, so I had to write a note because. Also, Linda, who used the store at douglasvgibbs.com/store to buy a couple books, and I wanted to let you know that today I can't because my schedule. So tomorrow morning, your books will be in the mail. But I wanted to just real quick, Linda, she just wanted to say part of what she wrote in her message was, I found and listened to you on Patriot Street Fighter. Love you and Ron. So Ron, you're included in the love. So I just wanted to let you know.
I'm flattered.
Thank you both for this movement and our country is in. So anyway,
I'm flattered. You guys and you guys that like the War Hamster. You guys need to tune into our Glitch in the Matrix. We generally do about a 1 hour roundtable with Dan Radio Style and Alpha Warrior. We do that on Monday. So we're going to be doing that live like we do this so that we can have some live interaction, but it's probably a little bit too hot for YouTube. So
yeah, we'd be kicked off in a matter of
that would last all of 10 minutes, if that. Chris, I was in Hattiesburg. I have a friend who lives in Hattiesburg. That's why I asked. So I flew out of.
Hattiesburg is actually way north of where he's at. I've been to Hattiesburg. I know where it's at.
He says it's an hour north.
Yeah,
of his location. So what's going on there, Darren and Sue and Renee? All right, guys. Well, let's get started. It's about 4 minutes after the hour. So
real quick before we start on the Constitution stuff, I just wanted, I'll take 2 minutes for this. Took me about half an hour at the Fallbrook class, but for you guys, I'll try to do it in a couple minutes. So my latest book, Creator, is out. And it took a while before I went from my last book to this book because it's been a challenge on different projects and all that. And this book seemed to be where God led me. And I'm not one that, I'm a Christian. I believe in Christ and all that, but I've never understood the God spoke to me kind of thing before. I know he has in sense of pushing me and nudging me in certain directions, but I've never had this, man, God told me to do this kind of situation before. Last weekend, I had God told me to do this kind of situation. No, I didn't have a conversation. God wasn't like, hey, Doug. I'm like, yeah, what's up? No, it wasn't like that at all. But I know it came from the Creator. Basically, my next project is that I'm working on the next book is the 1607 Project. It's going to challenge the 1619 Project head on, line by line, blow by blow. And the tough part about it, though, was that to do the research on that online is pretty much not available anymore because of the censorship and the wokeism and all sort of stuff. But the good news is I own about 4,000 books and probably about 50 of them at least have to do with the founding and or slavery. And these are books that are older than probably your oldest relative. Most of them go back to the early 1900s, 1800s, when they were still honest, when they wrote about stuff, and that's the good news. The bad news is all of those books are up at my place in Oregon. My father died in 99, left me a property up there. And to make room here, there's a lot of stuff that I know I'm not going to access anytime soon. I have put up there. Suddenly I need those books. I wasn't going to make a trip to Oregon. Suddenly decided I need to, but I don't want to interrupt my classes. So here's what I'm going to do. Thursday night, my buddy Alan Myers is running that class. I am not going to be there Thursday night because I'm going to take off for Oregon after my class in the morning on Thursday, and I have lunch with my students. Then we're taking off to Oregon. We're going to go up there. I'm going to gather my books. I'm going to go through the 4,000 books, find the books I need, put them in my truck, turn around, come back, because I have a speaking engagement Sunday morning. So I'm leaving Thursday afternoon or night. I'm going to be back Saturday night or early Sunday morning. And that's the good news. A great project. I'm excited about it. I believe that God has led me to go in this direction to challenge CRT head on. That's the good news. The tough news is this. It's $400 to $500 round trip for gas. And I decided I wasn't going to Oregon because I have another tooth thing I got to take care of. It was like monetarily one or the other.
Are you driving by yourself?
Taking my wife because coincidentally, and I don't believe in coincidences, she has this whole week off and doesn't have to go back to work till Monday. Funny how that worked out, timing wise. I thought she had to go back to work like Friday or Saturday. I told her, she says, "Oh, I'll go with you. I don't have to go to work till Monday." So if anybody wants to help out, DouglasVGibbs.com, politicalpistachio.com, donate. For those who want to use Zelle, because I do have Zelle, contact me at Constitution Association, not Constitution Association, I'm sorry, let me back up, rewind, Constitution Speaker at yahoo.com, Constitution Speaker at yahoo.com. I'll give you my phone number and you can shoot it to me by Zelle. This morning's Constitution class helped out quite a bit. We're almost there. If anybody wants to help out, appreciate it. I'm very jazzed about this new project because what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing they did with the 1619 project. What they did is right before the book came out, they did a series of articles through the New York Times to kind of warm people up to it. I'm going to do that through Canada Free Press, Central Idaho Post, American Spectator, Paris Progress, and the Weekly Sentinel, which are 5 paper newspapers I write for. And also on online. Canada Free Press actually is online, and the others are all paper. But and that way, I really want to hit them hard with this. I want to challenge CRT head on and the 1619 thing. And the reason why it came up is because while researching my next book, America's Christian Founding or Foundation, every single site I went to, including ones for little kids, showed that the first slaves arrived in the 13 original in 1619. Except there's a database that I have access to, which is the quote unquote gold standard of numbers when it comes to slavery, according to a gentleman from PBS. And according to it, the first slaves didn't arrive till 1645. It's a straight out lie. They chose 1619 because it's a year before 1620 Pilgrims. That way, oh no, slaves were here even before the Pilgrims. So this country is created on slavery, not Christianity. That's the argument. And that's what I'm challenging. So anyway, so that's it. All right, ready to get started?
Do it.
All right, do it. Thank you. And we got a great audience here. And yeah, my store is up and running, by the way. I was wondering too, but Linda, thank you for your purchase. And like I said, your books are in the mail in the morning. All right, we are on Article 1, Section 7. Article 1, Section 7. We left off last week with me discussing the very first sentence, which I'm going to repeat just to catch you up. All bills for raising revenue. This is once again Article 1, Section 7. Article 1, Section 7. All bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives, but the Senate may propose or concur with amendments as on other bills. This is important. This is a key here because remember, I argue all the time that we're not a democracy. We, the people, don't have all the vote all the time and the total vote, and we're not supposed to. Because the Constitution, a part of what the Constitution is about, is a distribution of power. And just like with anything, if you have too much power in any one place, it's dangerous. And that includes in our hands. So what the founders did as a republic is they distributed that power in such a way that it's distributed to different groups, parts, there's checks and balances, so forth. When it comes to the federal government, originally, the only democratically voted in people were those of the House of Representatives. Okay. Now, that said, that makes the House of Representatives then our house, the people's house. The Senate, appointed by the state legislatures, that makes it the state's house. The president is the executive of the federal government. So he's kind of the federal government's voice, along with the vice president. So when it comes to the legislative process, we have three voices: the House, the people; the Senate, the states; and the president of the Senate, which is vice president of the United States, which is the federal government's voice. So you have the people, the states, federal government, all involved in the legislative process at the federal level. Now, the vice president isn't really president of the Senate anymore unless there's a tie. Then they break the vote, but they're never there. And now, because of the 17th Amendment, the Senate is voted in democratically. So really, our entire federal legislature now is just based on the people's vote, democracy. But at that time, that's not the way it was. So we got House, people, state, or Senate, states, and president, Senate, the executive branch, federal government. Now, what this says,
yes, I got a question.
Sure.
At the top, the first sentence of Section 7 it says all bills are for raising revenue. How's that interpreted as spending?
Well, because in order to spend, you're supposed to raise the money to do so.
Okay.
Right?
Seems a little vague.
But basically, it has been I hate this word, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's been interpreted to mean that anything that deals with the money has to originate from the House, right? But you're right, raising revenue. So if it's spending without it raising any revenue, well, then where's the money going to come from? Because here's the thing: in order to spend, what does the money have to have been done? It has to be a portion appropriated, right? And if it's being appropriated, what had to happen before that? It had to be raised. So and they don't have a big slush fund somewhere that, well, they're not supposed to. They do, but
whoa.
So the idea is it requires revenue to appropriate it in order to spend it. That was the thinking at the time. Does that make sense?
It does. It's vague. It allows them to do all the shenanigans they're doing because of their vagary.
Well, it wasn't vague to them, but it is vague to us.
Balanced budget amendment starts to make more
but anyway,
sense.
So basically what it says is the power of the purse strings belongs to the House. That's how it is interpreted. Hate that word. Hate it. But anyway. Oh, Ron.
I don't think anybody, I understand that. I don't think anybody understands why you dislike that word interpreted.
All right. I will go over it in 2 minutes because there's probably a bunch out there. But I can't stand the word interpreted when it comes to our Constitution, because what has happened is we have been told that the lawyers and actually the judges, the judicial branch, the courts, they are there their job is to interpret the law and interpret the Constitution.
Right.
That everybody says it, everybody believes it. And that was never intended. That's not in the Constitution. Their job is not to interpret it. And here's what I mean by that. First of all, their job is to apply the law, not interpret it. Now, give me an example. You have a local law, stop sign. You roll through with here in California, we call it, we have a name for it. It's called a California stop, right? California stop is you roll through it, right? Come almost to a complete stop, but you just kind of roll. And it's called a California stop. So let's say you wind up in court, and the judge, has you and you're talking and you're just like, hey, judge, everybody does it. Society has changed. That's an old, antiquated way of looking at that law. Because society has changed over time, now stop also means slowly roll through it. And it's also known as a California stop. So I'm not guilty because the law has evolved over time, because society has evolved. And the judge is like, you know what? You got something there. Tell you what, for now on, because I'm saying so in this case, for now on, everybody can roll through stop signs. The law has been changed, It no longer says stop. You can roll through it too. Well, that's crazy. For one judge, I think the legislature might have a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what they're doing at the federal level with judicial review. Well, we're going to strike down this law. Well, what about what the legislature put in that law? Well, we're going to decide they were wrong on it. We're going to change it. We're going to strike it down because, we're judges. We can do that. Is that no different than what I just talked about? But see, what they have done is they say, well, we're interpreting it to mean different than what the legislature meant, or, we're going to interpret past laws and lawsuits and all this and rulings to determine what is really supposed to be when it comes to this law. And another way to help you understand this is, okay, now let's tell the other story I like to tell. My wife, God bless her heart, as one country comedian likes to say, if you say bless her heart, that means you can talk crap on them. But anyway, so my wife, bless her heart, she was born in Mexico. Spanish is her first language. She learned English later. In fact, she had to go through kindergarten twice because she didn't understand English well enough the first time to go to first grade. Nowadays, they expect you to know Spanish. And anyway, so she's bilingual. I'm not. I speak English. I don't speak Spanish. My father-in-law, when he immigrated here, first thing he did is he took English classes and welding classes, learn the language, get a skill. Love the guy. My mother-in-law, not so much. She never learned the language. She speaks Spanish. She don't speak English. I speak English. I don't speak Spanish. So as you can see right off the bat, I have a wonderful relationship with my mother-in-law because we can't understand each other, and that's great. But if I do want to communicate with her, my wife has to be the interpreter. So I tell my wife in English. She tells her mother in Spanish. Her mother responds in Spanish. My wife tells me in English what she said, and I believe her. Even though the look on her face might not match what what my wife said. All right, so who's got the real power in that conversation?
The interpreter holds the power.
The interpreter. She has all the power. She can say whatever she wants. She could tell me her mother said this if she actually said that. Who am I to know the difference? That's what the judges have done. The moment they made themselves the interpreters of the law and the interpreters of the Constitution, they took all the power.
Marbury versus Madison.
Marbury versus Madison, Judicial Review, 1803 and counting. So when I say I hate the word interpretation, that's what I mean.
Just
I hate
for
the
perspective,
fact that they interpret.
Just for perspective, 1803, 1903, 2003, 2022. That is 219 years of the judicial branch imposing their will on us. Just saying.
Interestingly enough, the Supreme Court case that was decided last week about the OSHA mandates, the conservative justices were consistently making Doug's argument, basically stating had Congress wanted OSHA to have that power, they would have clearly articulated it. Because they did not, we cannot assume that they do, and therefore they declined that mandate. So that was actually a good decision from that perspective.
Well, half of the decision was good. The fact that the federal, the HHS mandate stood, and everybody thinks that the president's supposed to be boss of the federal government. No, he's the boss of the executive branch, not of the federal government.
I always like
because somebody receives federal funding doesn't mean automatically they have to abide by some mandate by the president.
I like to tell people that and this is thanks to you, Doug, that what was the original job of the president and the legislative process? To determine the constitutionality of the bills that were put forward in front of him. It had nothing to do him signing legislation had absolutely nothing to do with whether he agreed or disagreed with the legislation. Right. It was exclusively to determine whether or not it conformed to the way the Constitution said. He's the boss of that. That's it.
Well, having a president run with a legislative platform, everything he wants to implement is anti-constitutional by itself. That's correct. That's the legislative branch's job.
That's the reason why Madison, vetoed the 1817 bonus bill that you've heard me talk about, in which in his veto, he explains the general welfare clause really well. And he basically says in his veto, if you read it, it sounds like a good idea, but I can't find any place in the Constitution that gives us the authority. So he admitted he thought it was a decent idea, but there's no authority here, so I can't sign it. And I can't remember which president it was. I want to say Pierce or Polk or something. I got right around. It was after Van Buren and Jackson, but before Lincoln. Somewhere in there was a president in which it was the first time that impeachment articles were drawn up by the House of Representatives. First time in history, and the impeachment went down and vote in the House, so it didn't get to the Senate. But the reason why they drew up the impeachment papers was because the president kept vetoing bills based on his political opinion rather than the constitutionality, and they believed that was an abuse of his powers, that his veto was only supposed to be tied into constitutionality, not his political opinion, which gets back to what Ron was just saying. So yeah, it's a fascinating thing. I gotta look it up again. I can't remember which president it was, but yeah, very first impeachment, or attempt anyway, by the House was because the president kept vetoing because he didn't like the bills politically, not because of the constitutionality. So yeah, very good. All right, so now that's the reason why when you hear me say, I hate interpretation, I hate that term, that's why. Okay, and when we get to Article 3, we'll get deeper into that. I mean, I'm sure you're not real happy with the courts anyway. If you're listening to this show, you're probably not a fan of the courts, I'm gonna guess.
Maybe just a little.
But man, I tell you what, by the time we're done with the third article, you'll be ready to just like get rid of that branch of the government. I mean, the judicial branch is supposed to be the weakest of the three originally.
And the strongest of the three was supposed to be the legislative.
Exactly. And we'll go over that in the future too. So all bills raising revenue, all the power of the purse strings, shall originate in the House of Representatives. So now getting back to what we're talking about. So that means even though the people only have one democratically voted group of representation in the federal government originally, that group has the ultimate power, the money. It doesn't matter if the federal government's doing something. They can starve it of money. No money, no war. No money, no program. No money, no whatever it is. So while that we are not supposed to be a pure democracy, the founders did find a way to make sure that the consent to the governed was in place. We gave our consent through our representatives when it came to the money. No money, no consent. Okay? It's not going to happen. So that's, to me, a very key part of the Constitution here. The problem is, going back to what we always talk about, they've removed mechanisms. They've changed it in such a way that now it doesn't matter. Because you've got these ideologically based representatives in both houses who could care less ultimately what's best for the people, what people want, and what's the rule of law. And they're going to do it the way they want, regardless of what the Constitution says. Where they want, how they want, and when they want. Regardless of what you say, regardless of what the Constitution says, and regardless of what the godly direction should be. Rule of law. Chat room making you chuckle?
Kind of. This is too good not to share.
Okay, share it.
This is
I can see that the Warhamster is ready to love it because of his heart, but go ahead.
This is my friend. This is my friend who was a former Riverside County deputy sheriff.
Okay.
And he says the stop sign analogy. When people used to tell me they had to slow down or they slowed down, I used to reply, if I were kicking you in the groin, would you want me to stop or slow down?
Well, it's pretty good. I kind of resemble that remark. I went to the batting cages with my grandson yesterday, hit a ball, went straight down, straight up. I wish I was wearing a cup. That's beside the point.
Yeah. I just thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, so we got a former deputy sheriff. Good to see you.
He is actually one of my
our law enforcement.
So yeah, Dave is one of my very close friends. In
Very
fact,
good.
he and Brady, these are guys that I talk to every day, just about. So
Dave probably knew my sister-in-law. She was with the Riverside County Sheriff for 25 years, just retired not too long ago.
what was her name? What was her last name?
Jax.
Where did she work?
She started with it was probation and the adolescent stuff too.
Yeah.
In the beginning, but she wound up in an office ultimately because of the years she was with them. But
was she deputy sheriff or was she just a
Riverside
whatever.
County Sheriff is all I know. I don't know if there's more divisions past that, but 25 years. She just retired, went and moved to Arizona. So I bet he probably knew her if he was.
He knows a lot of people.
All right. But the rest of the audience is like, yeah, but Doug, let's get back to the Constitution.
Exactly. Let's get to the Constitution.
Yeah. All right. So all bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives, the voice of the people. We have the power of the purse strings, but the Senate may propose or concur with amendments as on other bills. And that's a good thing. They should be able to amend it. But sometimes they do things that are just not right. Obamacare was an example. Another example just recently is, I'm trying to remember the name of this sucker now. It's on the tip of my tongue here. I've got it right here on my computer. Hang on a sec. We'll get there. HR. It's the, here it is. HR 5746, the voting rights bill. Have you ever heard about that one? So the voting rights bill, it was originally an HR bill for NASA. The amendment took all the language out and put in the Voting Rights Act into it. Then, along with all that language, they also stuck into it another bill called the Democracy Restoration Act, which failed as S-481, which was a Senate bill. That was one of the amendments that was stuck in there. It couldn't get out of committee. So what they do, they squeeze it into this bill. And my point is they take advantage of this. They use it in a way where they'll literally, oh, we can make an amendment. All right, we're going to strike all the language. We're going to squeeze in our own stuff. Well, they did that with Obamacare too. But in this case, what happened was the Senate bill became Obamacare. But the Senate can't originate a bill for raising revenue, which was going to be required for Obamacare. So what they did is they took an HR bill that was something totally different, pulled the language out, and put the Senate bill in there. That way the Senate did originate a bill for raising revenue, but it had an HR number. So that was their way of skirting around that rule. Well, doesn't that make you feel warm and fuzzy about Congress?
Well, we have to pass it so we know it's inside of it.
Yeah, well, it's just like this last one. They put out this 720-page bill. They put the language in 6 days before they voted for it. Can you read 720 pages and fully understand technical writing of 720 pages within 6 days and fully know what you're voting for? Especially when you're busy hanging out with Pelosi for the nighttime parties and all that stuff.
No, that's what they have their staff for.
Oh, you mean the staff is going to tell them what they want to hear, not what the truth is. Those guys,
which is expressly why term limits are meaningless.
Exactly, and that's been my argument for a long time. Term limits are meaningless because the problem is, while the Congress critters are a problem, the bigger problem is at the root, underneath them, that bureaucracy, the deep state, as we like to call it now, because those people don't leave. All right, so Senate may propose or concur with amendments as on other bills. Every bill, now we're going to start moving down, start talking about the lawmaking process here. Every bill which shall have passed the House of Representatives and the Senate shall, before it becomes a law, be presented to the President of the United States. So he has signature. This is his only legislative duty, to either sign or veto. If he approve, he shall sign it. But if not, he shall return it with his objections to that House in which it shall have originated, who shall enter the objections at large on their journal and proceed to reconsider it. His objections need to be in writing. They will enter those objections into the journal. That's one of the things I love about vetoes is you learn a lot about presidents based on their vetoes. You get to read what they wrote about certain laws and certain things, and one of my favorites, and I mentioned this earlier, and I like to tell people this is your homework. I really think you need to read it, is James Madison's 1817 veto of the bonus bill. It's a public works bill. And in it, what the bill was about, and you're going to get a kick out of this, the Congress wanted the federal government to pay for roadways and boatways. Like highway funding. And James Madison says, hey, sounds like a good idea, except for there's no authority in the Constitution. We don't have the authority to be paying for the roads and boatways, the highways and all that. Our job is external stuff. And Congress says, oh, no. See, it's for the general welfare. And plus military equipment are going to travel on those roads. It's almost identical, by the way, to the bill that was pushed by the Congress with the Interstate Highway Act with Eisenhower. Except for Eisenhower wasn't quite the constitutionalist, he signed it. Madison's like, no, roadways are up to the states. Now, when I talk about this with someone who's not necessarily in my wheelhouse when it comes to the Constitution, and they disagree with me, they're an adversary, they say, well, gosh, Doug, well, you don't like having a freeway system, I guess. Well, you think that it doesn't happen if the federal government doesn't do it? You don't think the states eventually would have said, you know what? This dirt road stuff ain't working. We might want to create some highways. You don't think the states would come up with that? I actually had a woman one time say, well, no, because if they built the highways, they wouldn't match up to state lines. Well, you don't think they'd communicate with each other either? It doesn't happen unless the federal government makes it happen, apparently. Originally, the states were supposed to take care of all the roads. It was none of the federal government's business.
Right.
The only time the federal government has anything to do with roads is the establishment of post roads for the Postal Service. To establish it, not maintain, just to establish them. That's it. That's the only authority the federal government has to do with roads, freeways, highways, byways, boatways, everything. So that's horrible because there's nothing we get done. What if the states allowed their roads to get really bad? So their product wouldn't be coming in. The people would start starving, and guess what? The people would demand that they fix the roads.
I was reliably told that you didn't build that.
And that's the reason why the federal government doesn't have that authority, because of that attitude right there.
You didn't build that.
Yeah.
It's probably the closest I ever came to throwing anything through my TV screen.
The two sayings that I enjoy the most is you didn't build that, and this one.
Let's go, Brandon.
I get these as gifts a lot lately. It's great. I got a hat, got the shirt, I got some of these little plaques. I love it. But anyway, I actually had the hat on one time, and a woman who I guess didn't agree with me, she saw the hat, she knew what it meant, and she went, "That's disgusting." So, yeah, isn't it? I'm grinning. But anyway, all right. So get back to where we're at. So now all these bills then have to pass both houses. Now, wait a second, but what if a house makes an amendment? Then it has to go back to the other house. Then if they amend it, it goes to the other house. They have to both agree on the same bill.
Mm-hmm.
First, it goes to the committees, works its way through the committees, it goes to the two houses. Then it goes to the president for a signature, which is where we're at in the Constitution. And if he doesn't like it, he can veto it. He can return it with his objections to that house in which it shall have originated. So if it was a House bill first, then it gets sent back to the House with his objections in writing. If after such reconsideration, 2/3 of that House shall agree to pass the bill, it shall be sent together with the objections to the other House, by which it shall likewise be reconsidered. And if approved by 2/3 of that House, it shall become a law. That's the override of a veto. 2/3 of each House. Now, you were talking earlier, Ron, you had brought this up about the strength of the different parts of government. And I said, well, the judicial branch is supposed to be the weakest. And you said legislative is the strongest. There's an example of that. The president could dislike it all he wants, but if 2/3 of them say, you know what, we disagree with you, President, we want it to be law anyway, they can override him. The legislature can override the president's veto. They can impeach the president. They can do the exceptions clause, actually make null and void even unconstitutional rulings or judicial opinions. That right there, that alone shows you that the legislative branch is the strongest. It's up to them to ratify treaties. President can negotiate them all he wants.
Now, of the legislative branch, of the legislative branches, because one is it's bicameral, so one Senate and House of Representatives. The House of Representatives holds more power than the Senate.
Yes and no. I mean, it depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about, the power of the money, absolutely. They're stronger when it comes to the power of the money. But when it comes to something like treaties, well, the House has no say in that.
Right.
Senate is the ratifying. The Senate is the upper house. It's
but in terms of domestic,
stronger,
but in terms of but in terms of domestic things, the House of Representatives,
absolutely. Well, because of the money,
right? At the national level, national level.
National. That's almost as bad as interpretation.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. At the
you train these children up all these years.
So what word should I use?
You like this?
Tell me what word should I use?
The country, the federation.
At the federal level.
At the federal level.
Okay.
At the countrywide level. Doug, what's wrong with national? Oh, glad you asked. Here, let me answer it for you. A national system is a system with a strong central government, and the lower governments are nothing more than provinces or regions that are designed to do what they're told by that centralized system. We are not a national government. We're not supposed to be a nation. So like in the Pledge of Allegiance, while it says one nation under God, I'm not a fan of that word nation being there. We're not supposed to be a nation. We're supposed to be a federation of states, a federation or a
federal. That's why we are
states.
We are a federal
country.
We are a federal republic.
A federal, you could put that. I like to say constitutional republic, but
Well, that's what I said yesterday, and Ron wanted to argue about it, so I just kind of zipped it.
That's why I'm like, we were talking about that yesterday. So
now I rest my case because Doug has given me the deciding vote.
No, yes.
So you can zip it on this one. It's a federal republic.
I just wants to be right. This is the competitive side, and him and me.
You're outvoted.
I'm not outvoted. I'm right. We're both right.
Okay.
See, the tough part is
you're less right.
See, the tough part is you would think that in a fight with between a squid and a hamster, the squid would win, especially if it's in the water. But remember, that hamster is well armed, and squids typically don't carry firearms.
Whatever.
Yeah, this is just not an ordinary hamster here.
Yeah, this is a badass hamster here. So
you should have seen that. He's just a pogue. He's just a pogue.
So all right, children.
Ron, you can be correct. You're just less correct.
See what I have to deal with, folks. All right, children, let's get moving.
Do you know what a pogue is?
Do I know what a pogue is?
Yeah.
Go ahead and give me your definition.
No, a pogue. A pogue is a person other than a grunt. And see, he's War Hamster is claiming himself to be like a soldier or a combatant, but in the Marines, a person other than a grunt is anybody who's a non-combat individual.
Right.
So,
in other words, support.
Right.
Which is like anywhere between 60 to 90%, depending on who you talk to.
Right.
And, by the way, also just let you know, grunt, and I love my grunts. So I'm not putting down the infantry. I'm not putting down grunts. Just understand something, Mr. Warhamster. It was the grunts that scored the lowest on the ASVAB. It's all those pogues that actually did better on the test. Just saying. Unless the person volunteered to be the grunt, then that's different. But just saying.
Anyway, moving on.
You're like the jock picking on the brain at school,
Me?
No, him.
Okay.
The thing that's hugging a heart right now.
Right. All right.
Jeez. I love you guys, but geez Louise. All right. I'm gonna have to bring down the hammer later.
You're okay. You know who you remind me of right now? You remind me of Burgess Meredith in and grumpy old men. Damn kids.
Get off my lawn. Is that Brandon?
No, that wasn't that. Get off my lawn was that was Gran Torino. That was
All right, Bert. Yeah, no, and I love that movie, by the way. Now, Burgess Meredith, I know him mostly from Twilight Zone because he seems to have been like in half of them. But anyway,
yeah.
All right.
Moving on. Constitution
Moving on.
class.
If after such reconsideration, 2/3 of that house shall agree to pass the bill, it shall be sent together with the objections to the other house, by which it shall likewise be reconsidered, and if approved by 2/3 of that house shall become law. Okay, that's the overriding of the veto. But in all cases, the votes of both houses shall be determined by yeas and nays. Does that mean you can't abstain? You gotta have a position. And the names of the persons voting for or against the bill shall be entered on the journal of each house respectively. You know what the word shall means? It's mandatory. No hiding, man. You got to vote, and people are going to know. If any bill shall not be returned by the president within 10 days, Sunday's accepted. I wonder why Sunday's accepted. Could because of that Christianity thing, could it be? After it shall have been presented to him, the same shall be a law. In other words, he can't just ignore it. After 10 days, if it's not signed into law and he didn't veto it, it automatically becomes law as if he signed it. Unless the Congress by their adjournment prevent its return. So notice they adjourn and he's unable to get it back to them within 2 days because of their adjournment. This clock stops until they come back into session, and then the clock starts again. Then he can return it within 10 days. They can't, in other words, make it so that because they want it to be a law, and they know he might veto it, and then they adjourn before he has the chance to veto or sign. And then, so it's law because you didn't return it in time. They can't do that. In which case it shall not be a law if they prevented its return. All right, so that's the lawmaking process. Now, here's something that's kind of important here, so I want you to pay attention. Every order, resolution, or vote to which the concurrence of the Senate and House of Representatives may be necessary, except on a question of adjournment. I'd like to also add, in the case of an amendment, but they hadn't gotten that far in writing the Constitution yet, shall be presented to the President of the United States, and before the same shall take effect, shall be approved by him or being disapproved by him, shall be repassed by 2/3 of the House and House of Representatives according to the rules and limitations prescribed in the case of a bill. In other words, that lawmaking process that's attached to a bill, resolutions, orders, all the other stuff, same process. It's all the same, no matter what. Same process. Still got to be approved by both houses. Still got to go to the president for signature. If he doesn't like it, in order to override it, still takes 2/3 of each house. Same process, whether it's a resolution, an order, whatever. Great example of resolutions is like something like, we want to, recognize such and such person for his great contributions. That's a resolution.
Of course. What would it be on a Constitution Tuesday without a Dr. Pepper?
Well, the throat gets scratchy from being dry, not from COVID. So there you go. So there you go. There's Article 1, Section 7. We're wrapped up with that. Is there any questions in the chat before I move on?
I haven't seen any yet. So,
any questions from
although
Warhamster?
Devil Dog says each state by definition is a country, and America is a union of countries.
Right. Exactly. They're their own entities.
Mm-hmm.
So they handle their own business. And then the federal government was established because as a union, they didn't often get along, didn't often agree on things, or when you have a dinner for where the figurehead of the country needs to go to this state dinner in such and such country, who do you send if you got 50 different states arguing over stuff?
I have a question for you, and this is kind of along those lines in terms of union of a country or union of countries. What was the precipitating factor of why the United States changed from being referred to as are to is. So pre-Civil War era time frame, referred to the United States would be the United States are this. The United States are going to war. The United States are doing something. And then after or shortly after the Civil War, many people like to say it's 1871. They say the United States is a singular entity as opposed to a collection of single entities.
Oh, what's the name of that movie with it's a Bill Gates character,
National Treasure.
National Treasure. Thank you. In the second film, the one where Mount Rushmore has all that treasure and stuff, they actually bring that up, and it's funny because I about dropped my jaw into the concrete at the theater when I heard it, because Hollywood got something right. And he says exactly that. He says, prior to the war between the states, it was the United States are. Afterwards, it became the United States is. And the question from Ron is why? How did that happen? Okay, well, Federation of States. As Devil Dog said, each state is its own country. In fact, in the very beginning, the Americans typically did not consider themselves American or a citizen of the country, even though they were. They considered themselves citizen of their state, and their state was considered citizen of the country. Now, that said, if you want to get into the 14th Amendment citizenship versus pre-14th Amendment citizenship, no, there was such thing as an American citizen. It indicates so in Article 2, right after the natural born citizen clause. But the attitude tended to be, I'm a citizen of my state, not of this union. And it was a bunch of states that had entered this union voluntarily. That means they could voluntarily come or go, and they did everything based on what they decided as a group, because also the state's voice was so heavily involved in all that. So it's the United States are. These states that are united. In fact, if you go to the Declaration of Independence, what you'll notice is at the very top of the Declaration of Independence, and if you go to it in your book, it should say so. It says the Declaration of Independence, action of the Second Continental Congress, July 4, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. And you'll notice that united is lowercase. Because the united is capitalized when it's the name of the country, but when it's describing what it is, it's lowercase. It's a condition. The states are uppercase. They're important. United, that's their condition. These states that are united, they came together in this union, and it was a union of these little countries. But what happened through the war between the states is one of the things that Abraham Lincoln was pushing, and partly because he had been trained to push that by the John Marshall law schools, who believed in a firm union rather than a voluntary union, was that it's sort of like the British Empire. In the British Empire, back in the days, if you were born a subject in the British Empire, you could not leave. You could never stop being a subject. That's the reason why when the United States won its independence, the British didn't really, even though in this Treaty of 1783, they indicated they recognized our sovereignty, they really didn't, and they disrespected our sovereignty because they really didn't recognize it. Well, when it came to the states that had seceded, Lincoln's attitude is like, no, this is a firm union. You're not allowed to leave. The federal government has all the power. We're going to force you back in, even if it takes military occupation. This is a country, a nation under this one central system. And the attitude shifted along with that. So we went from the United States are, a bunch of states who are voluntarily a part of it, who can leave, come and go as they please. They can take care of their own business. It's none of the federal government's business what they do, to this firm union where you're not allowed to leave. And we're going to use military occupation to keep you if we have to.
So there's not any.
And we're going to force you to behave because of the strong central national government.
There's not any one specific event that changed it. It was just more or
less war between the states.
Yeah, it's called a civil war.
No, it's a war between the states.
Well, sure, they call it a civil war.
It was a war for the war for Southern determination.
Yeah, Ron and I are going to get pretty deep into this when we start our untold history. But at the end of the day, you're talking about the nationalists, the federalists, the mercantilists. They wanted a strong central government. One of the main reasons is so they could use a military for foreign adventurism for commercial purposes. That's basically the mercantilist dream. And we've been caught up in foreign entanglements ever since.
And George Washington warned against foreign entanglements. And what is meant by that is being involved in foreign things that are going on that does not we don't have any interest in. There's no direct interest. It does not, influence us directly. So we got no business being involved. The world affairs is the world affairs. Now, if it directly influences us and it touches on us directly, then we need to be involved. It's not that we need to be complete isolationists. But on the same token, if it has no, if it doesn't, if we're not a part, it's not up, we're supposed to have nothing to do with it. I remember when reading about when France and Britain went to war under the Adams presidency, and Jefferson, one of the few times I had a problem with Jefferson. And Jefferson says, "Hey man, we need to, go to war against Britain with France to show our support for our ally." And Adams says, "No, we don't. It doesn't concern us." We should at least, Jefferson says, we should at least voice our opinion on which side we support. And Adams, and when he was president, I wasn't thrilled, but here he was right. He says, "No, we shouldn't even say anything about who we support. It doesn't concern us." Foreign entanglements. George Washington warned against that in his farewell address.
I question Adams' motivation. He was a pretty pro-British, throughout most of his career. So, as a Federalist, yes.
So there you go. Okay. Back on our heads, as they say.
8. Section 8.
Section 8, right. I'm getting back there again. All right, so now Article 1, Section 8. This is a list of the authorities granted. Remember, I've told you before, the way the Constitution is designed, when it comes to federal power, either it's listed or it's not. If it's not expressly enumerated, then it's not an authority. I don't care how much you hear about implied powers or implied law or interpretation. The way they wrote it was, it must be an expressly enumerated power in the Constitution in order for the federal government to have the authority. Now, that said, I'm not saying that there are not things out there that the federal government should have authority over, and it's not listed, but they ought to. I agree, they ought to. But until it's expressly authorized, they don't. Great example, aviation. I'm not saying that I don't think the federal government should have the authority over aviation, especially when we got planes going over the skies of different states and all that jazz. It's a different country. I agree. There should be federal standards, all that jazz. It's better for the industry in the long run. But at the moment, there's no authority. So technically, the FAA and all of those rules by the federal government, it's all unconstitutional. Why? Well, gosh, it should be. Well, yeah, but should be is not enough. Rules are rules. So there needs to be some written, expressly enumerated authorities in the Constitution. The way to do that is through an amendment. Congress then should have proposed an amendment requesting that the federal government had authority over aviation. Then where does it go after that? The states, 3/4 states. You know why? Because the states are the final arbiters. The states are the parents here. You need their approval before you can do it, federal government. You're not supposed to just take it upon yourself. Now, this is the first list of federal authorities. Article 1, Section 8. And it begins, the Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes. That's a shocker, isn't it? I know it's sad. Yes, they do have the constitutional authority to tax, but I'm going to flip the page here over to Article 1, Section 9, because I want you to get some context here. Article 1, Section 9, 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph down. No capitation or other direct tax shall be laid unless in proportion to the census or enumeration herein before directed to be taken. All right, so what it was saying is, first of all, there's no direct taxation. And if there is any kind of direct taxation, it has to be based on enumeration. Well, then if it's based on enumeration, in other words, population, then who are you taxing? Directly. Not the people, the states. The states paid the income tax directly. We paid it indirectly. And the states paid it based on the census. So the portion that the state of the original federal budget that the states paid was based on their population. For example, in today's world, I am told that California is 12% of the population of the country. Therefore, if the old rule still stood, California would pay 12% of the federal budget after, of course, what was taken care of by things like tariffs and stuff like that. Okay, but now if California's going to pay 12% and it's a state, it's big enough, it's one of the parents, what's a good parent going to do? A good parent is going to say, well, let me take a look at this, youngster, before I give you the money. You know, that's unconstitutional. That's just ridiculous. I'm not paying it. Try it again. Bring me something I like, and then I'll pay my portion.
Right.
That's what the states were doing. Now, think about that for a second. Do you think that might curb some of the unconstitutional federal spending? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Remember early on when I told you that the federal government couldn't do anything without direct or indirect permission from the state legislatures? That's an example of it. 16th Amendment changed it. When you read the 16th Amendment, it's very careful to make sure it understands and you understand what it's saying. Here's what it says in the 16th Amendment. Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived. So even if it's not really an income, they can tax it. Without apportionment among the several states and without regard to any census or enumeration. In other words, hey, that old way of doing it, we're even getting rid of the census part of it. Doesn't matter, no longer applies. We're taking it from you people, which violates Article 1, Section 9. Remember, no capitation or other direct tax shall be laid. So, well, yeah, but Doug, it doesn't violate because they changed it. Yeah, but they should have stuck with the old method. Thomas Jefferson said that if ever the government can directly tax the people, there will be no limit to how much they can tax. Boy, isn't that true? And on that happy note, we got about a minute and a half left.
Not really many questions today. A lot of dialogue, but more or less dialogue amongst the class. But
okay,
no real questions that I see. And if you have any questions, guys, please ask them now. I shared a very short video on the Abraham Lincoln called the Abraham Lincoln problem. It's about it's a little over 9 minutes. It's Thomas J. De Lorenzo, which it's
I'm
actually
a huge fan.
Yeah, as we all are, and he does a very good job of being concise as to laying out the problem of what Abraham Lincoln did, and why it was so bad.
Hey, Ron,
yeah.
Darren did ask a question up above that I think I'd like to hear Doug's answer.
Oh, we'll go. Yeah, fire away.
Yeah, Darren was asking if that was true, then each state would not have its own constitution.
What he was talking about specifically is that if the states were unable to leave, if the states were being forced into staying in the union, then they would not have their own.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Well, the idea that the federal government is, God over everything, and that the national government controls everything, and that it is a national government in the first place. You would then have no reason for the state constitutions. But the local issues are taken care of by the states. That's what state constitutions are for. Federal constitution was for the federal government, state constitution for the state government, and the authorities are very different. We have what's called checks and balances, and when we hear checks and balances and a separation of powers, people think we're talking about the three branches against each other, and that's it. The checks and balances and the separation of powers goes deeper than just the three branches from each other. It's also between federal, state, county, and municipal governments also. Authorities lie at different levels, and it's none of the other government's businesses regarding what it is. And we also have to remember this: prior to the Constitution, the states held all the power. They had what is called original authority. They had original authority over everything. And they said, well, you know what? I like the way Dennis puts it, because he pulls out his wallet, he says, I'm going to keep this. And he's got a bunch of $1, he's got his money. He's like, I'm going to keep this one. I'm going to keep this one. I'm going to keep, what, federal government though, I can't handle this. So I'm going to give you this one. But you can only have that one. The rest of them staying on my wallet. And that's really what happened. The states have all the authorities. And, I love the way James Madison put it in Federalist 45. And if you don't mind, I'll read that for you. And it's funny because I keep this on my phone for quick access. I put it there on purpose because I go to it so much. This is what James Madison wrote when it came to the separation of powers and the responsibilities of the two governments, the federal versus the states. The powers delegated by the proposed Constitution to the federal government are few and defined. Not many, and they're defined. They are listed. They are enumerated. Those which are to remain in the state governments are numerous and indefinite. There's a lot of them, and the number goes on forever because it's everything else. Every authority you can think of, if it's not listed and it's not prohibited to states, 10th Amendment belongs to states or to the people. It's a concurrent power between the states and the people. The former will be exercised principally on external objects as war, peace, negotiation, and foreign commerce, with which the last power of taxation will, for the most part, be connected. The powers reserved to the several states will extend to all the objects which, in the ordinary course of affairs, concern the lives, liberties, and properties of the people, and the internal order, improvement, and prosperity of the state. Internal order, improvement, and prosperity of the state. So this idea of the federal government paying for the infrastructure, it's up to the states to take care of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The operations of the federal government will be most extensive in times of war and danger. Those of the state governments in times of peace and security. I think that pretty much nails it.
Conservative Cowboy asks, Larry Klayman of Freedom Watch USA convened a citizen grand jury and indicated, okay, so he says indicated, but I think he's being indicted Biden and Fauci. Have you heard about this?
I have heard about it. I don't know all the details. And when it comes to citizen grand juries, first of all, it depends on if the state's going to recognize the grand jury in the first place. I think like a dozen states recognize citizen grand juries, the rest of them not so much. That's part of the reason why it's so important for us to get rid of the 17th Amendment and get rid of Reynolds v. Sims 1964 decision, is so that we can fill the legislatures with allies that are willing to recognize citizen grand juries. Citizen grand juries are also known as common law grand juries.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the method that you would use to indict also office holders who have participated or have given aid and comfort to insurrection, such as Black Lives Matter and things like that. 14th Amendment, Section 3, remove them from office and never allow them to hold office again. The good news is that exists. The bad news is in the last couple of weeks, the left has noticed it and they've decided they can use 14th Amendment, Section 3 against all of us because we dare to support the people of January 6th.
Devil Dog is saying the sheriff can stop all the unconstitutional nonsense within his county.
Yes. He could choose not to enforce a law because he knows it to be unconstitutional. Also, the federal government cannot operate in his county without his permission. So if ATF, for example, wants to come in, he says, nope, not this week. Sorry, go away. I'm not allowing you to. He can do that.
So theoretically speaking, if the federal government wanted to arrest you or I, and Chad Bianco said, sorry, you're not coming. I'm not allowing you to be in my county to do that. Chad Bianco can come in and override the federal government from arresting us unless we actually
He
step
is the
foot.
highest ranking law enforcement official in the county, and that includes federal officials who may try to get into his county. He ranks higher than all of them in his county.
Interesting. I knew that, but it's just interesting to say that what you said there. That was
Constitutional sheriff is a huge deal. What's funny is Sheriff Bianco is one of the most constitutional sheriffs I've ever come across, but he's not a fan of Sheriff Mack, who's all about constitutional sheriff. So it's funny how I think
why.
it's an ego thing.
I'm curious.
Not
that you're going to speak for him, but
yeah, I will give you some basics without kind of getting into the whole gist of things, because I'm actually friends with both of them. I know Sheriff Bianco, Constitution Association. He was our very first speaker back when he was still a lieutenant. He's a friend, you know, shooting guns with him, the whole bit. Good guy. Sheriff Mack, same thing. I've been friends with him a long time. I love him. I love what he's doing, but for some reason the two have clashed, and I believe it's a misunderstanding, and B, a little bit of ego. What happened was what Sheriff Mack does with his CSPOA.
Thank you.
Yeah. Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. And I've gone to a bunch of their meetings, and Mac and I have done actually 2 events together, or 3 events together. We've done 3 events together. But anyway, and I've got him on, we text every once in a while. I know the guy. What he does is he goes into these different parts of the country to teach the sheriffs and teach their deputies how to be more constitutional, understand what their responsibility are as constitutional sheriffs. And he offers the service. And typically, if it's a constitutional sheriff, it's welcomed. For some reason, Chad Bianco did not welcome that opportunity with a smile, and kind of took it as if Mac was trying to dictate to him how to run his own department. And so there's not a very good, close relationship there. Now, that said, like I said, I'm not picking sides. I'm not saying one's right, one's wrong, nothing like that. I love both of these guys. Chad Bianco, fantastic individual. Sheriff Mack, love him absolutely. The unfortunate thing is it has created some divisions in certain places. For example, my pastor is the chaplain for Chad Bianco. Therefore, he has decided not to do events when Sheriff Mack were at events, because he didn't want to betray his sheriff, who's not really fond of Mac, and Mac kind of doesn't understand. And it's like, and I told Sheriff Mack, I really believe it's a misunderstanding and perhaps a little bit of ego, but keep doing what you're doing. Don't worry about it. Sheriff Bianco's, he's a constitutional sheriff. Whether or not his deputies are properly trained, I don't know, but I have a feeling someday these two will meet in the field of combat as allies. But until then, it is what it is. And it's unfortunate, but what I can't say enough about both of them, though, in the positive sense. I'm very blessed to have them both in my life.
Tracy says alpha males.
Alpha males, yeah. There is. Well, there's another individual, which I'm not going to go into names, but Warhamster knows more than anybody the situation where we kind of clash, but we work together. He hosts something I do.
Oh, there's no alpha males or egos in our circle at all.
No, none.
When it comes to, see, I'm kind of weird because it depends on the situation. Man, if it comes to constitutional stuff, I'm about as alpha as they get. Other stuff, I'm willing to step aside, kind of watch, whatever. But when it comes to this other person, he's like, and I know you know who I'm talking about, Warhamster, and he's like very alpha, or at least he thinks he is. And very high strung and very kind of egocentric, and our personalities kind of don't mesh real well together, but yet we work together well in the sense that we both have the same goals. But one of the problems with this individual is he wants me to be a part of his team, and I'm not a part of anybody's team. I like being solo. I like being my own guy. I'll help. I'll contribute. I'll consult. I'll
You'll
help your
collaborate.
team.
You'll collaborate.
Yeah, I'll
but you're-
collaborate, but I don't want to be
you-
your employee.
Well,
right.
some of us just weren't built to be minions.
Yeah, and I'm one of them. So, but you know what? I don't dislike the guy. I want to really like him, but sometimes I want to just, but you know what? We make it work somehow. We had a great, matter of fact, last Thursday night. Now I kind of gave it away who it might be to a few other people, but we had a nice long talk, and he and I are definitely in a better place than we were before, in the sense of being allies and working together. And that's what we need to do. But yeah, there's, unfortunately, you're right. Alpha male, us guys, we have our territories and
Ego.
Well, to be quite honest, Doug, I was getting sick of being the go-between between you two. Yeah, it's like wait, I don't have any marriage counseling, qualifications.
Well, what's on tap next week there, Mr. Gibbs?
we're going to continue through Article 1, Section 8, and Commerce Clause is a big one.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a bunch of notes ready for that one.
So next week
Commerce
is,
Clause. I'm here to tell you folks,
are we
when I
doing,
talk about the Commerce Clause, you're going to be shocked.
so are we strictly going to do Section 8, or are we going to delve into Section 9 as well?
No, we probably won't get done with 8. We'll get
Okay.
probably about halfway to 2/3 of the way through 8. I doubt we'll finish it.
Okay.
But Commerce Clause definitely next week. It's like the 4th clause down or 3rd clause, something like that.
So
And I'm here to tell you, audience, the Commerce Clause alone is going to stun you. It's going to make sense once I explain it. But in probably 99% of you guys out there, you never dreamed what it really is about. And that's why you also need to advertise this to other people to be here.
I'm looking forward to that. Darren wants to know how the FBI has an office in every state. Is the
They have
whole
an
thing
agreement with each of those states and counties, and they've got to constitutionally.
constitutionally, but
Yeah.
that's just more or less a formality. It's not
Well,
really
the agreement, it's almost like it's a general agreement where, yeah, we're going to operate. Okay. Well, generally you guys are going to be okay. So you got my okay. If I have a problem, I'll let you know. I mean, that's kind of the way it's treated.
Well, if you look at if you really want to look at what law enforcement has become post 9/11, all the fusion centers, all that other stuff, it's like basically the federal government has put their tentacles into local law enforcement at every single level.
Right. And local law enforcement is supposed to be exactly that. Local, number one.
Mhm.
Number two, they're not really supposed to be law enforcement. They're supposed to be report takers and then investigators.
Right.
You can't enforce the law until after the law has been broken. Problem is, what's happened in our society is they're trying to become the Minority Report.
I was just going to say Minority Report.
Yeah, pre-crime division is on its way.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we'll catch you before you do it.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
we know you're guilty. I mean, that pretty much was
Guilty until proven innocent.
and you're guilty until proven innocent. Yeah, just ask everybody that got arrested for January 6th.
Exactly.
All right. Well,
correct.
I've got a trip to San Juan Capistrano to make. I need to get out the door in about
be
1
safe
minute.
out there on the roads. It's kind of raining a little bit out here in SoCal today. So
You know what's hilarious about that?
hmm.
I looked up in Oregon and it's not raining, it's sunny. That reminds me, remember I mentioned earlier on that 1607 project. I am going to make a trip up to Oregon because I've got a bunch of resources I need to use for the 1607 project to tackle the 1619 project and CRT head on. I need to get my resources. They're up there in Oregon. So I'm going to leave Thursday, get back Saturday night. If you want to donate, you want to help out, DouglasVGibbs.com, politicalpistachio.com. And also don't forget, Creator is on sale and you don't have to buy it at Amazon if you don't want to. You can go to my store, DouglasVGibbs.com/store. And you can buy it there.
In the chat, Devil Dog reached out and said he has something like 400 books that are that are like 19th century books, and
I've probably got 100 to 200 that are 1800s.
He's said he's put quite a few of them into PDFs.
Oh, really?
And so I don't know if they've been scanned with text.
But tell you what, if you think any of them will help with the founding of the country and or my tackling slavery, shoot me an email.
He and I have connected, and I have his phone number, and I will share that with you, and then we can. All
right,
we could talk.
Yeah, because right now, Devil Dog, all you are is a name in a chat room. I would love to get to know you, brother.
Yeah. So.
Very cool.
All right, guys. Go ahead.
I'm just correcting the saying D-Dog instead of Devil Dog.
Yeah, okay. Devil Dog, D-Dog.
I don't know. I'm not looking at the chat. I'm just doing what I'm told. So if Ron steers me wrong, because he's the interpreter. He's interpreting what's going on in the chat room. I just,
Well, Warhamster, I almost did it. Warhamster gets to see it as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and who can argue with something that cute and cuddly holding on to a heart?
He said it's pre-1880.
Pre-1880. Okay, yeah, I've got I got quite a bit of that. My favorite that I have is called the New Views of the Constitution of the United States, John Taylor, 1823.
Yeah, you also mentioned some of them were medical books. I think that's pretty fascinating.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Benjamin Rush style stuff, maybe.
We will make it pre-Rockefeller medical establishment.
Yeah, very good.
Let's go into that rabbit.
You laugh at that. What that wasn't meant to be funny. Why did you laugh?
I guess it is, because most people don't realize the Rockefeller influence on the medical.
No,
most people don't realize it.
No, they don't understand the Rockefeller influence, because the Rockefeller influence, and this is what's crucial to understand. The Rockefeller influence is the associations and the like the American Medical Association, American Historical Societies, the historical associations and societies. Those two things, those are the governing bodies that dictate what is approved to go into textbooks.
The Rockefellers and the Carnegies.
Yep, and
founded the FDA and the American Cancer Institute in 1913.
Oh, that year sounds familiar.
Yeah,
my favorite year.
So since they determine, and again, it goes back to that. It goes back to the rule by secrecy thing. Anything that falls outside of the Eastern liberal establishment's idea of what they want to be put in there, and you can substitute the Eastern liberal establishment for Rockefeller. Anything that falls outside of what they deem appropriate to go into a book will not have the proper funding. Will not get.
It's amazing how much influence you can have in the medical community when your endowments and foundations are financing every medical school in the country.
Yeah.
You kind of get them to do it. You kind of get them to teach what you want them to teach. And when you have a monopoly on petroleum-based pharmaceuticals, it's kind of pretty obvious which direction you're going to tell people to go. There you have it.
Or as I like to say, 100% of professors and scientists 100% agree with the people who fund them.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
Follow the money.
Exactly. But that's this topic is getting a little bit probably too hot for.
I need to go too.
For YT.
Otherwise, I'm gonna be late.
So we'll cut it short. And thank you everybody for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you next Tuesday.
All right. See you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.